Today I'm reacting to your wrestling hot takes. This is the weekly series that allows you to submit your hot take. So if you want to submit your hot take for next week's video, make sure that you submit it over on X. I ask for your hot takes every Thursday. That is when you're able to submit them. And hey, as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications if you're a wrestling fan. I'm confident that you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we upload daily wrestling content. Let's read some stupid shit. I think that Seth Rollins' title reign is kind of boring, full of most of the same matches with the Judgment Day and Shinsuke. Not saying that I don't like Rollins, but his reign just doesn't do it for me. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think that your problem, and my problem for that matter, is necessarily the title matches that he's had, because he's had some pretty good ones and pretty decent feuds to back. The feud with Nakamura was a solid one. The feud with Finn Balor was absolutely fantastic. But ultimately, the problem is that I don't think any of us care about the World Heavyweight Championship right now, because it does still feel like a consolation prize to Roman Reigns' World Championship. And frankly, I think that the World Heavyweight Championship in terms of prestige and importance is lower on the totem pole than the Intercontinental Championship. To me, that is the top prize of Monday Night Raw. But I'm willing to give this title more time to breathe and more time to grow in prestige. And I think that the more champions and the longer that the lineage becomes for this new World Heavyweight Championship, the more that we'll start to respect the championship itself, and the more that we'll start to care about championship matches. Because right now, I'm kind of with you, like this, it's kind of boring and it feels low stakes right now. Santino Marella deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Absolute facts. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that this is a hot take. I think a lot of us agree with the sentiment that Santino deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, because the Hall of Fame doesn't have to be just people that have won multiple world championships. There are lesser individuals in the Hall of Fame than Santino Marella. But what Santino Marella does is that he has elevated the entire game of the comedy gimmick. Like, he is the GOAT of the comedy gimmick in the history of the WWE, in my opinion. And there is and will always be a spot for comedy gimmicks in professional wrestling. So I think it's only fair to induct the greatest comedy gimmick of all time in Santino Marella into the WWE Hall of Fame. Roman will defeat Cody at WrestleMania 40. Woo-hoo, a nice, simple, quick, and to the point one. And I gotta be honest with you, I think at this point, I'm starting to agree. Last year, Cody Rhodes' story was special, and I wanted him to finish the story, as he would say over and over again on Monday Night Raw. However, I feel that as we get closer to WrestleMania 40, Roman's story becomes more important to Cody's story. And Roman's story being the one that will cement himself as the greatest champion in WWE history, as if he were to beat Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40, that will put him 4 months away from breaking Hulk Hogan's record as a long-standing WWE champion, leaving him only behind the untouchable reign of Bruno Sammartino. And I think, personally, that there is more value at this moment in time in having Roman Reigns surpass and remove Hulk Hogan from the history books than Cody Rhodes finishing his story. Again, had this been at last year's WrestleMania, I wouldn't have even conceived or thought of the idea of Roman Reigns surpassing the 1,000 days or surpassing Hulk Hogan. But now, as we get closer to these types of milestones, I feel like that's more important than Cody's story at this point, frankly. And here's the thing, the only place that Roman Reigns could and should lose this championship is at a WrestleMania. So if he beats Cody or whoever it is that he faces at WrestleMania 40 and he retains the championship, then for a certainty, we're not going to have him lose again until WrestleMania 41, which guarantees that Roman Reigns will surpass Hulk Hogan. And I think that that's what the WWE is more focused on these days, as opposed to Cody Rhodes' story. Tony Khan's ego needs to be put aside ASAP. He needs to stop thinking AEW will ever be bigger than the WWE. And I know from a business standpoint that you have to be confident, but this isn't even confidence. Blood is straight up delusional. Additionally, he needs to book smaller venues, which would allow for even more crowd participation / pops like NXT, and work with OVW for talent development instead of paying top dollar for ex-WWE guys that barely get any TV time. Damn, okay, but the homie really went in. I like this one because you're starting to think long-term for AEW's success. I like the idea of AEW creating or purchasing or working alongside a smaller wrestling organization and using that as their farm system for developmental, because you're right, they don't have a developmental system right now. Their developmental system is who is a free agent that we can bring to AEW, which prevents them from creating their own homegrown stars, which ultimately means for AEW to grow and expand as a wrestling company, they're either going to have to rely on people that the WWE let go, or they have to constantly enter into major bidding wars with the WWE for the services of guys like Will Ospreay. While if you have a farm system, a developmental system, you can create megastars at a cheaper price. Just look at the WWE creating megastars out of guys in the future like a Braun Breaker. It's going to cost the WWE pennies, as opposed to having Braun Breaker become a superstar somewhere else and then having to get into a bidding war to win him over. And yes, absolutely, AEW is missing that core component of future-proofing their business model. You also mentioned Tony Khan's ego. I think the big thing is that this man needs a public relations team. A PR team would do this man wonders, and deleting Twitter off of his cell phone would also help him big time. That man should just not be allowed to tweet these days. The last bit that you mentioned is also booking smaller venues, and I couldn't agree more. The most recent episode of Dynamite as of the making of this video was at the Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky. They sold around 3,000 tickets, but that arena has the capacity for 22,000 people. It makes no sense why they're booking shows in giant arenas like that. So I'm with you. I think that they should be booking smaller arenas to create a more hardcore environment, an environment that allows for the crowd to really help take over the show and really add life to the show itself, as opposed to just becoming a meme online as people continue to take pictures of these sparse crowds at these AEW shows. We need more mixed gender tag matches in the WWE. Maybe even find a way to incorporate a mixed tag title. I don't think that we need more titles in the WWE. I mean, just look at AEW. They suffer from the opposite problem of having way too many titles. And I don't think that the WWE can foster a competitive mixed tag division. I mean, they're struggling with the women's tag division and making that legitimate, so let them figure that out first. But what I would like to see, maybe to help meet you in the middle, is the return of the mixed tag challenge. It was a really, really fun one-off tournament that the WWE would do that didn't really have major storyline consequences. I'd love to see that again. Why not? Gunther should walk out of WrestleMania Night 1 as World Heavyweight and Intercontinental Champion. My dude, I've been saying this, and I think that there's a big mentality on the internet regarding Gunther of, well, should he be World Heavyweight Champion or continue the Intercontinental Championship reign? And I say, well, why not both? And we've seen precedent before of the Intercontinental Champion taking on a world champion in the Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan in a winner-take-all match. So I could definitely see them redoing this by having Gunther walk in as the Intercontinental Champion and walking out as the World Heavyweight Champion. And if you want to have Gunther be a super legitimate threat for that world title at WrestleMania 40, imagine him carrying in that giant legacy and winning streak of the Intercontinental Championship that he's built. It would just help his aura as a legitimate threat to that World Heavyweight Championship. I think it does create some problems of, well, then how do you have him lose the Intercontinental Championship? But hey, we can cross that bridge when we get there. But I love the idea of Gunther walking out with both titles. LA Knight losing the Money in the Bank ladder match was always the right decision. He was just getting over with the fans, and it was way too early to pull the trigger on him, while they had plans for Damian Priest and the Judgment Day. It's interesting that you submitted this, because Sancho and I had a conversation about this on the most recent episode of the Wrestling is Cool podcast, which you should absolutely be checking out. It's a great wrestling podcast that I think you're gonna really love. But I think it's really easy to say this knowing where LA Knight landed and how things ultimately worked out. but I still think that you're wrong. I still think that the right choice was LA Knight. I'm just saying that LA Knight just still felt like the right option to carry the Money in the Bank briefcase, and I think that we could have still finished and been where we are today with LA Knight facing Roman Reigns for the world title. But to be fair, WWE knocked it out of the park with the LA Knight storyline and got him where he deserves to be, which is at the top of the card, without needing that Money in the Bank briefcase. However, I still think, if we go back in time, that moment in time, the Money in the Bank in London, LA Knight should have won that. But, again, looking back, revisionist history, maybe you're right. But I still think at that time, LA Knight was the right call. Although a great wrestler, I've always found Bret Hart boring as hell. Dude, me too. Honestly, the best version of Bret Hart was Chelsea Green dressed up as Bret Hart in the Trick or Street fight in the most recent episode of Monday Night Raw. I'm not a fan of DIY. I don't know if it's because I never saw them until now, as they started during my huge break from watching wrestling, but they don't click with me. Well, you answered your own question. That is exactly the reason why they don't click with you, because I'm going to be honest, DIY is a nostalgia bait for NXT Black and Gold fans. They are trying so hard to redo the magic of DIY, and they are failing. But DIY and NXT Black and Gold was arguably one of the most entertaining, most organically over tag team duos of all time. And it was a tag team with a story that eventually developed into the greatest main event storyline in NXT Black and Gold history. So a lot of fans that were watching at the time, like myself and other people in the space, are clamoring for that return to greatness from DIY. But right now, if this is your first time experience in DIY, I don't blame you. They're kind of lame. Corbin should have successfully cashed in his Money in the Bank. I mean, sure, why not? The other option at the time wasn't much better. It was Jinder Mahal. So, I guess I would have been down for this. Tiffany Stratton is the most complete female in the WWE. She's got the character and the in-ring capability to prove it. I think Tiffany Stratton is amazing. I still think that she needs more polish, but I think that she's going to be doing amazing things for the rest of her career. She already feels special and only has 2 years of wrestling experience under her belt. Just think about what she could do with 5, 10, 15 years of experience. As much as I'd love CM Punk to return at Survivor Series in Chicago, I can't help but notice that Royal Rumble 2024 would be Punk's 10-year anniversary since wrestling for the WWE. Does he come back at Survivor Series or Royal Rumble? I feel the teases with Shinsuke Nakamura lead to Survivor Series. I guess I hear you, but I think that's just an arbitrary anniversary. I think that if the WWE were to bring CM Punk, that's a major investment for them, both financially and in terms of TV time, and they want to make sure that that investment gets the best possible start. And if you want CM Punk to have the best possible start with the audience, it's to debut him, or re-debut him rather, I should say, in his hometown of Chicago, Illinois, where CM Punk can do no wrong. CM Punk could go around punching puppies and punting babies, and he'd still get a loud crowd reaction from his Chicago faithful. So if you want to make sure that CM Punk gets off to the right start in his WWE return, you have to have him return in Chicago. Editor deserves human rights. No, because my editor is subhuman garbage filth. Randy Orton is easily on the Mount Rushmore of WWE. His character work is amazing. He might not put on 5-star matches, but always puts on a show nonetheless, and he has potentially the best career in terms of putting people over. His return would only cement his legacy. I like the fact that you use legacy at the end there. Randy Orton is undoubtedly one of the greatest of all time, and if we were to get really specific with the criteria of Mount Rushmore, if we were to say the greatest person to never ever leave the WWE for something else, then I think, Randy Orton has a potential to be on that list. However, when people think of the Mount Rushmore of the WWE, they always think of the guy. Who was the guy during that time? Who was the guy during that generation of wrestling? And unfortunately, Randy Orton was never the guy, because he was always behind the guy, John Cena. But I'm with you, man. Randy Orton is an absolute once-in-a-lifetime gem that I feel like many of us took for granted during the peak of his career. I love Randy Orton. I genuinely think that if built properly, LA Knight versus Logan Paul for the United States title has the potential to be the night one main event of WrestleMania. I don't think it would main event because there's 4 titles, men's and women's, but the tag titles did main event WrestleMania 39, so who knows? I don't think that it'll main event, but I think it has potential to be one of the biggest matches on that WrestleMania card. And I think that if they were to do LA Knight versus Logan Paul at WrestleMania for the United States Championship, that it could be the biggest United States Championship match of all time. A lot of people gave me flack when I said that I think that LA Knight is going to lose to Roman Reigns and he's eventually going to vie for the US title. And this was before I thought Logan Paul was even in the picture. I said that I could see Logan Paul going into WrestleMania as a US champion and LA Knight could vie for that championship and it would just be a huge marquee match. And I still stand by that, even more so now that as of the recording of this video, Logan Paul is going after the United States Championship. Seth hasn't elevated the title in the way that I thought that he would. Love the Nakamura feud, but it felt more personal than for the actual title. Again, it could be because Roman's reign is making the title look like a participation title because it's felt stale, and I think Drew winning it could elevate it. So I talked a little bit about this earlier. I think the only thing that could elevate that title is a stronger lineage. So more major WWE superstars, like you said, Drew McIntyre winning it will ultimately help elevate the importance of this championship. But because this is still a brand new title and the only champion that we've ever had for this title is Seth Rollins, it doesn't have that legacy or that importance for us to really care for it as a major piece of championship gold in the WWE. Logan Paul wins the US title and somehow finds his way into the Judgment Day. What? Why do you want him in the... That's fucking stupid. We don't... No. Logan Paul in the Judgment Day, never. Please, no. Paul Heyman is the best manager ever. It's hot takes like these that almost want to make me end this series because, like, this isn't a hot take, dude. Like, what is your thought on murder? Do you think that it's bad? Like, dude, try and get a little bit original. Everyone thinks that Paul Heyman is the best manager of all time. This is incredibly unoriginal. Sorry for roasting you, but, like, dude, this is hot takes, not super cold, potentially mildly lukewarm opinions that everybody holds true. AJ Styles was the most overrated debut in the WWE as he was way better in the indie circuit. Okay, so let me just walk through his debut. So he debuted at the Royal Rumble, which was seen as crazy considering everybody that the WWE was signing at the time was immediately being sent to NXT. Then he would go on to have a marquee match at WrestleMania with Chris Jericho, and then he'd have a giant feud with John Cena, and then he'd go on to win the WWE Championship, and that is all in the span of about 8 to 9 months. And you're saying that his debut was lackluster? I don't know what you're talking about. I love the idea of turning The Miz face. I really want to cheer for him, and his feud with Gunther is going to be awesome, and I will be okay if he's the one to dethrone Gunther. I don't know if he's going to be the one to dethrone Gunther. I just don't see it, but what I want to touch on is the whole Miz turning face, because they've tried it before and it failed miserably, and I think that there is a blueprint that they should follow, and that being the blueprint of MJF in AEW, where they turned him face without really changing his character in any way, shape, or form. He's still a terrible human being. He's still a scumbag. The only difference is that now he goes after bad guys as opposed to going to against the traditional good guys. And I think that's what they need to do with The Miz. Like, they need to keep The Miz the exact same, the same character. The only difference here is that he's using all of his snively, evil, terrible tactics and his amazing promo abilities to go after Gunther, a bad guy, as opposed to a good guy. Because if they tried what they did with The Miz a few years ago, where they tried to make him a clean-cut babyface and try to make him the next Ric Flair, that's gonna fail miserably and fall flat. They need to keep The Miz the same, and that's how face Miz is gonna work out. Roman should lose the WWE title and it should be unified with the World Heavyweight Championship. The idea of one world title being superior than the other sucks. It won't feel odd because it's been done twice, and Roman being Universal Champion compared to a unified champ will even everything out. Okay, so you want the part-timer that was criticized for holding both titles hostage and leaving the WWE with no major title to vie for to go and win the other championship that's left as a top title, and you want him to now unify with that so that he could go back to his retreats and his vacations and only appear once every 3 months and then leave us once again with no major world titles at the top. That's your plan? because I'm pretty sure we've seen this story before and we all fucking hated it. JD McDonough should have a year stint in the main event scene. No, that Olive Garden waiter looking ass has no business being in the main event. No thank you. I don't know what it is, but Monday Night Raw needs something. Yes, the matches usually cook and it's better with Michael Cole on commentary, but it still feels like a chore to watch sometimes. I'm with you, man. Like 3 hours of Monday Night Raw is rough, considering it usually is just the same thing but different people. It's always Judgment Day interrupts one of the baby faces. One of the baby faces might have a match in the main event against one of those people from Judgment Day, or he might have to get a tag team partner, or it might turn into a 6-man tag match, but it will always be the same 3 dudes in the same formula against the Judgment Day. They just need to do something new, something different that doesn't just fully revolve around the Judgment Day. The most interesting episodes of Monday Night Raw is when Gunther has been the main event. Frankly, when Gunther has defended his Intercontinental Championship on the main event of Raw. Those are the most interesting Raws of the last several months, because if it's not that, then it's usually just a regurgitation of the same thing over and over again, involving the Judgment Day and the top 3 or 4 baby faces on Raw. All right, those are the hot takes for this week. Again, if you want to submit your hot takes for next week's video, make sure that you're following me on X. The link will be down in the description below, but that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.